Hey guys, welcome back. This is Adricta, ADWCTA, and we are continuing our TGT, the Grand Tournament expansion for Hearthstone, review of all the cards for the arena. We talked about jousting last time, we talked about the one drops, and we talked about card draw, some of the card draw cards that were entered. But we have more cards to go through, and so we're going through them right now. And I always forget to add, I'm still trying to figure out this whole making a YouTube video thing. But please hit like on this video, on the previous one if you like it. Subscribe if you like our content. We're going to be putting out more of these types of talking videos, not just gameplay videos, because I think there's a real audience for this, even after TGT comes out. And we have our first podcast coming out next week, so there's also that. Good time to start subbing to us. You also get my excellent analysis for the arena, which surprisingly I think is kind of one of a kind right now. People are kind of always mixed constructed in arena, but we're really very focused on the arena. And also comment. You get some good discussions going on, and I'll respond to almost every comment that comes in with a question, unless I think it's either totally irrelevant or you've stumped me. So let's continue with the new hobgoblins, just to kind of ease us into the bigger picture, which we're going to go into. Crowd favorite. It's a 4/4 for 4 mana. That's okay. Whenever you play a card with Battlecry, gain +1/+1. Why am I calling this the new hobgoblin? It's because hobgoblins, they are not a good card. We don't think they're a good card. They're 3 mana, 2/3, and if you play a card that has only 1 attack, well, what's going to happen is you're going to get a +2/+2 on that card, and all of a sudden, you basically gain 1 mana's worth of tempo compared to how much you put out. And if you can do it with multiple cards, you can really stack up the tempo swing, and you can really stack up the value of the hobgoblin. But things with 1 attack are generally not that good. They're kind of rare. Battle cries are pretty good. It doesn't have that problem. And it also doesn't have the problem where it takes away 1 whole mana's worth of stats, right? Hobgoblin's a 2/3, it could be a 3/4. Crowd Favor was going to be a 4/5 at best if it were a Yeti, so it's only taking 1. So that's a much easier pill to swallow. And on the flip side, you don't gain as much. You only gain +1/+1. So for this card to get value, you have to play it with a Battlecry card, or you have to play it stays on the board for 1 more turn, and then you play a Battlecry card. Either way, your chances of that kind of happening in a timely fashion, I would say, is 50-50. So it's kind of a very well-valued card. And it's definitely better than a Hobgoblin. I think I like the direction that this is going, where it has the same effect as the Hobgoblin, but it's not this niche combo deck card. It's much better for the arena to have cards like this than cards like the Hobgoblin. And then, similarly, Master of Ceremonies, you have the trigger is spell damage. There's obviously very few cards with spell damage. And like a Hobgoblin, you get a +2/+2, which sounds like, oh no, big swing, but the swing is controlled because this is a battle cry. You only get it once. It either grows when you have it, when you play it, or it doesn't grow. And even if it doesn't grow, you still have a 3 mana 4/2, which is pretty good. This is 3 drops are notoriously not that good. So a 4/2, it still has 4 damage. It's not quite a 4/3, but it's not going to be that often that the 2 to 3 health thing matters, unless you're trying to play around something like a Consecrate. So it's a playable 3-drop. It's not a good 3-drop, but it's a playable 3-drop with nothing. And if you have something, like you're playing in the late game, or you're playing it just with a spell damage card, it becomes, once again, not that good. It's a 6/4, right? 6/4, bad stat distribution, but it's only 3 mana. So if you could get a Volcanic Drake out for 3 mana, you're pretty happy. And so that's its upside. So compared to a Hobgoblin, the downsides are both lower for the Crowd Favorite and the Master Ceremonies. And I think that's what's going to make them more viable. In the arena, you always need cards that you can kind of play as drops, that you can kind of play on curve, or that you can play whenever you have an X amount of mana left over. You don't want to be holding cards forever. Because some cards you're going to be forced to pick that you'll have to hold forever, either because it's a specific removal, or if it's a crowd control card that damages multiple minions, or it's completely anti-tempo, like it's a card draw card like Arcane Intellect that you really can't play if you need the tempo on that turn. So having more of those cards that are stuck in your hand, like a Hobgoblin, is not a good thing. It has to really pay for itself. But having a card that you could kind of reasonably, big game hunter style, just throw it on the board and go all right, I know I can get value, but I'm not waiting on it anymore. And it's a totally viable, correct play. That has a good amount of value, right? Big game hunter gets a lot of targets, But for the most part, most games, you're just going to play it as a 4-2, and that's fine. It's the same with the Master of Ceremonies. It's not going to get as much value as a big game hunter, so it's not going to be rated as highly. But you can throw it out as a 4-2, and it's fine, and it will get value sometimes. Actually, I don't know. Maybe I take that back. Big game hunter's probably going to get value more frequently. Not just bigger value, but also more frequently than Master of Ceremonies. There's really not that many plus spell damage cards in this game. Okay, now we move on to the exciting part. You might have thought jousting was exciting. You might have thought the deep analysis on the inspire mechanic was exciting. You may have just really liked one of the cards we went through. People like my Silent Night analysis, I think, which as compared to Trump's, just for the Harvest Golem comparison that very few people were making for whatever reason. But this is the key. This is what I think is the key, and it is class convergence. So the idea of class convergence, and we talked about it a little bit with the Inspire, is that as Blizzard, in a game design perspective, as you release more cards, you're going to enter the spaces for each class. You're going to enter the spaces of other classes. Like if we think of a priest as you get on the board and then you heal your minions and you eventually get a card advantage and then you kill your opponent at some point. If you think of, let's say, Warlock as you put down tons of small minions and then you can tap and play 2 cards at once and you're good. Or if you think of Rogue as, well, they have a combo mechanic, so you kind of want to play a little more control in the first few turns and then you combo out something to take over the board and then you kind of push for lethal before you run out of steam. If you think of classes in kind of this set fashion, which I think, that's how I think of classes. I think they can go in many different ways, but that they have their strengths and they have their weaknesses. And the part that I focus on, and good players often focus on, is their weakness. Because if a class has a weakness, then you can play around that class doing something. So if this mage is holding on to that flame strike and he needs it to come back, you can use that against him to plan your board. If the paladin can't do anything until turn 4, you can use that to like really aggressively play your early turns. Like sure, you can have a bluegill, sure you can have a coghammer, but that's an epic and or that's like a neutral common that's not rated highly. For the most part, what's going to happen is you have these set plays that you play. And that's one of the reasons why I really like facing Paladin. Because you're basically playing this very set match in the first 3 turns, and it really allows you to set up and run away with the game. Yeah, the Paladin has a shielded mini-bot. Yeah, the Paladin has a couple of OP cards coming up. But for the most part, you can kind of box the Paladin into the position you want him to be in. And with the Mage, it's a little rougher, but you can still tell what's coming. On the other hand, when you start adding cards to anyone's card pool, the natural instinct is to kind of fill in these gaps, right? Like, well, what happened with the Hunter? Well, I didn't have a lot of good late game cards, so we kept adding late game cards. Didn't have an early weapon, so we added a Glypzuka. It kind of needed like an aggro sense, so we kind of want to add a 1-drop, but at the same time, we don't want to make Face Hunter too good, so let's add a Web Spinner. That'll be fun. And each time you add a card, you kind of necessarily invade into another class's space. And if you do this repeatedly over many expansions, all the classes start looking the same. And that takes away an element of skill, I think, which is how to play differently against each class. And it also takes away an element of fun, which is how you can use your class's advantages and minimize your class's disadvantages. That's why we have classes instead of just skins for the same exact hero. So I'm very worried about this because I'm more worried about this than people are worried about, like, what do you call that? When cards get better, right? Like, the next card you release will be better than the first card because people need to play that card. The power creep, something like that. I'm more worried about class convergence because in Arena, even if you power creep, you're still going to be forced to pick crappy cards because it's Arena. You're going to get offered crappy cards. Power creep, not as big of an issue, but class convergence will destroy a lot of the fun. And that's one of the reasons why I really liked Inspire, because Inspire brought the classes apart. It's one mechanic. It goes on commons, it goes on neutrals, it goes everywhere. It's a big focus of this expansion, and it makes each of these cards different for each hero. So it drives the heroes apart necessarily by taking the one thing that will never change between the heroes, which is what their hero power is. And that's great. We just got a whole bunch of cards now that work the opposite way, that kind of take away all the good things that Inspire has done for the Arena meta when it comes to class convergence. And one of the cards, we're going to start with the one that may seem most confusing because it is the one that I have just finished talking to you about in the previous part about how much I like this card, right? Because sometimes I do like class convergence, which is when I think a class is really missing something to a degree where in the arena meta, it's very severely hurt by it. And I think shamans were missing ancestral knowledge. They were missing some kind of card draw mechanic. And for a class with a hero power, with a set of cards that do this, you kind of really want this card draw. On the other hand, it does make it more difficult to play against the shaman, because right now we can kind of predict that the shaman can't draw a lot of cards, and once it starts being able to draw cards with ancestral knowledge, we can't make that prediction anymore. But it's the direction I like that the shaman's going in. On the other hand, a card that I really, really, really hate is the Argent Lance. This is not a Seal of Light. This is not a below average or average, but really below average if you put it in your deck kind of card. This is a good card. It's a kind of a Glyvzuka with, or potentially it'll be a Stormforge Axe without the really like huge penalty at the time, because you would have 3 mana and you would be penalized 1 mana. That's a third of your mana gone, and it wouldn't have that penalty like 40% of the time. So it's a very good card. It's going to be played a lot. Like when you get offered Argent Lands, you're going to probably take it. Although I don't know, it's Paladin. They have ridiculous rares that are even better than Argent Lands. But you're still going to see it a fair amount of times. And it is it's going to knock away your sense of stability. It's not the worst in the world, right? Because it's only 2 damage. It's not 3 damage. And you want to play a 2/3 if possible against the Paladin anyway because of Shielded Minibot. But it's creeping into that space where I know what a Paladin is going to do on turn 2, on turn 3 right now. I know it's full world of options, and I know the percent in which they'll have that in their deck. And I won't know it after this. I mean, I'll still know it when this card comes out, but the percent chance that I will be screwed will go up. And it doesn't go up to a high enough percentage that I won't keep doing what I'll do, but it's going to swing the game against me more often. And I don't like that, because I'm playing against the Paladin the correct way, and now there's a higher percent chance that I get punished by what's effectively RNG of them drawing the card, of them having this card in the deck. I often say, once you play around a card, it is no longer powerful. That's why Flame Strike's not one of the best cards in the game. Objectively, it should be. But it's not, because everyone plays around it. No one's going to play around an Argent Lance. No one. And that's why this is going to be one of the most powerful cards that TGT releases in the arena. So we're going to go on. There's 2 more cards that fit this category. Shadowpan Cavalry. Rogues, it's hard to say what they're doing with the Rogue, but they've made late game cards for the Rogue. They've made a Nubar Ambusher, which is a very anti-rogue card. You can't have other things on the board or it pulls it back. It's a 5/5 on turn 4. No one's really going to kill it immediately. So it's a very awkward card. But a Shadowpan Cavalry, again, suffers from the same thing that Argent Lance suffers from, which is that it is too good of an arena card. And so it will get played. And I don't really care if you're an aggro rogue or not. This is a good card. We saw with Kidnapper, for example, that's another high mana card, and it requires a combo to trigger. That's still a pretty good card, because you can still get these combos to trigger. Not necessarily holding the coin or anything, but you can backstab, you can save a 1 mana card to play, you can get these combos to trigger. And even if you don't get the combo to trigger, what are you really missing? What's 5 mana going to get you when it comes to a defensive card? Fen Creeper's a 3/6 with Taunt. This is a 3/7. It's not that, like, you don't really lose that much. Maybe it should be, what, like a 4/7? You're really not losing all that much for being a 5 mana card. You're losing like a tiny bit if you don't get the combo out. So it's still a decent card even if you play it without the combo. But the fact that you can play it with the combo and it becomes a 5 mana Boulder Fist Ogre that you can't play necessarily on turn 6, but that'll come out later in the game. It's Flame Strike proof. It's very good. And it's bringing Rogue into this space of what's another class that can ping and has big cards. Well, that's a Druid, which at this point could not be more different than the Rogue. I think Blizzard created very good different spheres for Rogue, Mage, and Druid, despite all of them having a hero power that pings. And now the Rogue is kind of encroaching in on the Druid side. between the Anubar Ambusher, between the Shadowpan Cavalry, Tinkers, kind of, not so much, but you also get all these things that deal 4 damage, which again is kind of the Druid's turf. So it's something to worry about. I still think with something like the Rogue, where the class is generally more dominant when you play it either mid-game, flip the board, then go face style, or you play it as just kind of a an aggro tempo style. It's fine to add a card like this, even if it's very good and it is common. But we're playing with fire here. This can easily get out of hand, is all I'm saying. And then the newly revealed card that just revealed several hours ago, Confuse. It may not seem like convergence, because swapping health and attack seems like a priesty thing to do, right? No other class does it, and priest is all about how much attack or how much health it has. But what this effectively does, you shouldn't just look at it with what it literally does. You should look at it as, well, when would you play this? You would play it when you don't have enough attack on the board and you're not Shadow Word Painting or Shadow Word Deathing into something. You're effectively using this to give one of your minions a stat boost and not a health boost. Almost all priest cards only give a health boost besides Valens, and Valens is unfair, and we know that. But this is now another way that you can give that very, very rarely seen and not planned for attack boost to your cards as priest. So it gets rid of a weakness, right? That's what I'm the most concerned about. It gets rid of a weakness, and this gets rid of a weakness for the priest. It's an epic card. It's not going to make a big dent, but again, just moving a little bit into the space. Overall, with the cards revealed, I think the Inspire mechanic is going to do as good as these cards will do bad, except for Argent Lands. It's a Paladin. That's the sacred place where you feel safe with a Paladin, because all hell breaks loose after turn 4. And I hate anything that touches that space. And now let's talk about some of the really good cards, actually. And people were really excited about these, and they should be. They're just good cards. Remember when we were all worried? Well, I wasn't that worried, but a lot of people were worried on the internet about the mage getting a 3/4 and being able to curve out super well and better than all the other classes. And I thought, well, probably other classes are going to get commons that help them curve out too, so that the mage won't really be getting ahead. Doesn't look like the mage is getting ahead. Druid of the Saber, a 3/2 stealth, which by the way is better than a 2/3 stealth. It's just better than a Gilblin, even without the choose one, or a spot removal. You can't make a better 2-drop and still have it be fair. This is an insane card. This is better than a Yeti. I really want to say it's better than a Shredder. We'll figure this out at some point, but it's better than a Dark Iron Dwarf. It will own the meta when it comes to the Druid. And you know what about the Druid? The Druid already has 2 common 2-drops. It was already overloaded at common 2-drops, and now you get another one. Those 2 are also really good. And those 2 are also ones that you're not really too scared about saving them for later. So now Druid has 3 really, really good common 2-drops that you can also all save for later, so you're not too afraid of getting too many of them. This is crazy good for the Druid. I'm very excited about the Druid when it comes to TGT. It seems like Blizzard's really made this class better for the arena, intentionally or not. And I have always had good success with Druid in the arena, so I'm expecting it to be a very dominant class. Although other people haven't really had as much success with the Druid, and I don't really know why, even good players. But it's just getting better, and it's getting more consistent, and your average is going to go up. It may not make the Druid a better superpower when it comes to getting 12 wins, but when it comes to getting 9 wins, I've always thought Druid was the easiest class to get 9 wins with, maybe tied with Mage. And now I think it's going to be, probably better than Mage. When it comes to getting to 9 wins, not necessarily 12. And it doesn't end there. More curves, more good curves, especially for the Druid. Darnassus Aspirant. I have no idea how to pronounce this card. It's a rare, which is a good thing, because it's kind of a super way over the top powerful card. And the way I'm going to describe this card is to compare it with a Pint-Sized Summoner, right? It's a 2 mana. It has 2 attack, and the good part about it is that if it stays alive for 1 turn, it allows you to play a 4 mana card on your turn 3. Well, a Pint-Sized Summoner has some restrictions. One, it only applies to minions. You can't play a spell. If you play a spell, like if your opponent drops something and you really need to remove it more than you want to put out a 4-drop, you remove it and then you kind of lose your mana benefit. Not the case here. You can play a Daenerys Aspirant and swipe. You can play a Daenerys Aspirant and then you can Wrath. I guess you could do that anyway. You can Wrath and play a 2-drop anyway. Scratch that. But you can, you can swipe. You can bite. You can do some things. And more importantly than that, it's a 2/3, so it doesn't get eaten. If you just play it out and your opponent drops a 2/3, you're the one with the ping. You're a druid, so you're at least going to be even with your opponent on this trade-off here. And not a good chance, probably less than half, but a decent chance that you're going to come out ahead on the exchange. So this is one of the most powerful cards, and again, another 2-drop. So now Druid's you're just going to feel so safe drafting Druid. And Druid already has that great Druid of the Flame 3-drop. And we didn't even mention, I think, that we expect the Druid of the Saber to also be beasts for whatever that's worth in the Druid decks. So, very good. And then we get a slightly less good 2-drop, and I'm still very excited about this 2-drop. Wow. Could we get it? No? Okay. So this is kind of in a different format, I guess, linked from Reddit. It says, whenever this minion takes damage, also deal that amount to your hero. As a Warlock, this is really, really, really bad, because you're taking at least 3 damage. So it's at a very minimum Flame Imp, and it has an unfavorable stat distribution as opposed to the Flame Imp. 3/2, pretty good. 4/3, not so good. And more importantly than that, you can overdeal damage. If someone fireballs it, that's 6 damage to your face. It doesn't cap at 3. There's also some crazy combos that you could probably pull off to like kill the Warlock hero by hitting the Wrath Guard. Like the Flame whatever, right? Flame, what's that card called? Flame Lance, which, if you guys remember, deals 8 damage to a minion. Well, if you deal 8 damage to that minion, you also deal 8 damage to the Warlock's face, which is 4 less cards for the Warlock, which is a really good trade-off. But it's still not a bad card. Why is it not a bad card in the arena? It's not a bad card just because it's a 2-drop. And as the Warlock, you don't currently have a common 2-drop. You have Mistress of Pain as a rare, but you have a Succubus as your nominal 2-drop that you don't really want to play, because then it'll probably discard your 3-drop if you had it at all. And it's, again, a 4/3 stat distribution, which is not good. This one is a little better to play. You are going to take a hit, right, with your health total. But in terms of draft consistency, it does smooth out that curve. It's not like a Succubus. You can pick a Wrathguard. It'll be okay. Is it going to be better than a normal 2-drop? Depends. I think right now 2/3s are dominating the meta more than 3/2s in terms of frequency. So if you're facing a 2/3, you eat it, they still have to ping and they lose more tempo. As the Warlock, you care so much about that tempo on the board, because once you lose it, you have very few ways of getting it back. And that's the way that you prevent yourself from taking even more face damage. So it may very well be worth it. I think it's a decent 2-drop. And now we riot. We have finally arrived at the moment you've all been waiting for. Adbukta, me, I am going to riot. It happened. And why am I rioting? I am rioting because of the Warrior. The Warrior is my favorite class. It used to be my best class. I got 8.5 wins on average with it out of a huge sample size before GVG came in and kind of said, screw you, Warrior. You are not a class we care about for the arena. We are going to make no cards that do anything for you, while making a lot of the other classes very powerful. And we understand you were an underplayed class, and we understand that you were always a below average class for most players, and we're going to make you the worst class. And then the BRM came around, and they, took the Warlock, and they said, okay, we'll give you one of the best cards we have in the common pool. Why? Yeah, you're not doing so well right now. Hunter still got some decent cards. And Warrior, what did Warrior get? I don't even remember what Warrior got. All I remember is that it was crap, because I don't use that card. And I don't think anyone uses that card, whichever card it was. Was it the Ogre Warmaul? Or was that GVG? Either way, it's been a long, slow decline. Sorry. It's been a long, fast decline for the Warrior. Right now, Hearth Arena stats shows that it is by far the worst class. By far. Bar none. The charts kind of go like, and the Warrior chart goes like, that's really how it looks. It looks really shocking how bad the Warrior is performing. And Blizzard has these stats. They know. They have more stats than we do. I don't know if they look at them. I don't know if they care about the arena balance like that. But in any case, this was a necessary turning point in TGT to make the Warriors' common class pool better. And it started off with a very uninspiring card back in the day, right? Well, one of the first Warrior card revealed, and the only one revealed until recently, was the King's Defender. You know, it's an above average card. It's not a good card. I wasn't very excited by it. I think Warrior needed better cards, and it's a rare. But as it turns out, that was the best apparently that we were going to get, because the next Warrior cards that are released is Bash and Bolster. Bash, oh god, is this card. You deal 3 damage, you gain 3 armor. If you're inspired by this card, you either don't know the game very well, or you have more faith than I do in the Warrior. It's a very normal card. It's not going to be rated much higher than a 50. It's anti-tempo. Getting 3 armor is nice. It's also very good that Bash allows you to deal damage in a way that doesn't use a weapon. So you can deal damage from your hand from 2 sources on 1 turn. Which Slam and Cleave also allow you to do. But that was kind of it where the Warrior is concerned. So that's helpful. These are like smaller considerations. These are not large considerations. A large consideration, on the other hand, would be something like Bolster, which is the other common Warrior card that was revealed. What is Bolster? Bolster is a completely unplayable card in the arena. It is Gang Up, except, unlike Gang Up, noobs won't even think it's good, because it is that obvious that this is an awful card. Not a single person would even ever take it, and it is basically going to just dilute the Warrior class card pool, and it will make it even harder to draft a consistent Warrior, and Warrior already is difficult to draft consistently. They're kind of inconsistent with actually decent to use weapons. They're super inconsistent with the curve, because out of the common card pool, only 1 card can be played on a curve, sort of, and that's the Arathi Weaponsmith. And I stress sort of, because if you have a weapon in hand, like a Fiery War Axe that you haven't used up, you can't play the Arathi Weaponsmith. And it has so little. And it's not like it's one of those classes with the superpower, like, hero power that you're like, oh, it's fine, right? Like, even if we never gave Mage another card and took away its Flame Strike, its hero power will still carry it. That's not the case with the Warrior. It has the worst hero power. Its hero power is essentially a combo-y kind of hero power, where you need to use your armor stuff. But it's the arena, which means combos suck, and all the things that use armor, even combo cards that use armor, what are they? They're like epics and rares. It's not... There's one more common card coming. There's one more common card coming for the Warrior, which I will get to. Because of the amount of cards that have been revealed for, I think, the Shaman, which is that there are 3 common cards. There's at least going to be 3 common cards for every single class. And so we got one more shot with the Warrior. One more shot to make TGT not be the 3rd expansion in a row that made the worst class in the arena even worse. And if that card comes out, and we rate it above an 80, I will temporarily revoke the riot. But otherwise, we're in official rioting right now. And I think this is well-deserved. Because I don't know what the rare cards for the Warriors are, but it's got to be better for the arena than whatever these 2 crappy cards that they revealed are. And the fact that they are not making it into commons, and they're making these cards into commons instead, it shows that they care about the card collection process. The card collection process, which is not even like the super competitive part of the ranked game. But the progression of a player into forming, I don't know, like a control warrior deck, a patron warrior deck, they care about that process more than they care about having a class be viable in the arena. This is not a problem Blizzard is unaware of. They're 100% aware of this problem. And they are just choosing... Sorry, that was a fly. He's rioting too. They're just choosing to ignore the problem, and by ignoring the problem, they have also made it worse. And so I am rioting. We'll see what the next card is. One last chance at redemption for Blizzard. And that's it. That's it for me. I hope you join me in the riot. Upvote this, share this. I want to get the riot started. I don't really know exactly what the mechanics are to rioting. I've never rioted before, but I'm going to riot now. And if you guys want to give me suggestions on how to properly riot, I'm open to them, and I will enact the necessary procedures that I need to do in order to make this riot effective for the future. So that's it. We've gone over all the cards. That was like 20 cards, more than 20 cards, and it took more than an hour. Well, actually, it took a little less than an hour altogether. Kind of proud of myself. Hope you guys enjoyed the analysis, and hope you guys join me in the riot. Like this, share it, comment on it. Just type RIOT in all caps and exclamation point and make a comment. Do that on Reddit too. I don't know. We really need a movement. This is like really pissing me off. Like as soon as I saw those cards, I was like flipping out at work, and people were like, "What are you doing?" Nothing's happened, but everything's happened. So I'll see you guys. Obviously, I broke the Monday rule because there's too many cards that come out, and we're probably not going to actually release the next video on Monday because there won't be enough cards that come out. But we will release the next video when the next batch of cards come out, which is going to be sometime in the middle of next week. So this is Adwikta, ADWCTA, and we're signing off until next time. Riot!